Hello, and welcome to K4's May 2022 webinar. We're just getting started here, and I think we can wait a few minutes and let others join as their days begin. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to K4's May 2022 webinar. My name is Jared Simon. I'm the Director of Hardware Products here at K4 Mobility. Today, you'll hear from myself and Justin Smith, our Director of Solutions Engineering, as well as some of our contributors down below. We have Brian Lauer, our CTO, Mark Malash, our Senior Vice President of Operations, and Robert Blackman, the Director of Technical Operations, here to answer all your questions. And let's get started. So here's our agenda for the day. We're going to start with a little overview of K4 and talk about our mission. Then we'll explain K4's Edge as a Service, KaaS. We'll go through the EdgeServer2 and give you an overview of the hardware you'll get when you purchase one of our EdgeServer platforms. We'll have a demo with the configuration and use of the EdgeServer, and then we'll have a question and answer session. And throughout the webinar, feel free to use the chat feature to ask any questions, and then we'll do our best to address them at the end at the Q&A section. So to start off with, who is K4? K4 is a technology company whose mission and vision is to make access to the wireless internet easy. When we say wireless internet, we include all wireless links to the internet. That's satellite-based and terrestrial wireless, 4G, 5G, any way you can connect. K4 was founded 3 years ago by entrepreneurs and wireless pioneers who built and grew GoGo, the in-flight Wi-Fi company. This time, though, we decided to start with the maritime market, as the market is much bigger, and the connectivity needs are much more acute. K4 is primarily focused on software that optimizes connectivity. We've developed an intuitive and scalable network management platform called the K4 Edge, which bridges the gap between network planning and bandwidth management, and it scales seamlessly from a single vessel to an entire fleet. We also offer integrated hardware to run our software. These are packaged solutions with the highest performing antennas and modem systems. We found that the market was moving towards integrated hardware and software solutions, but it really wasn't moving quickly enough. So we developed hardware to improve the efficiency in finding and selecting the best available network. And you'll see some of that today. We also offer traditional bandwidth subscriptions, as well as blended cellular and satellite airtime packages. But as a platform, we support distribution partners that provide their own subscription plans to customers as well. So this three-tiered approach has really let us understand the challenges in maritime internet. So we'd like to show you how you can use K4's Edge to optimize your operations. For the rest of this webinar, we'll focus on K4 as a service, KaaS, and show you how straightforward it is to configure and use. So in the slide here, this is an overview of K4 Edge as a Service. It's a scalable network management platform that enables enterprises to couple traditional network security and access controls with precise bandwidth management. And it's all configurable remotely through an intuitive interface and convenient mobile app. The Edge platform is composed of three primary service elements. One is the Edge OS node. That's a controllable physical interface through which network traffic passes. There's Connect in our mobile app, K4 Edge. It's the client interface for management of Edge OS nodes. And Capture, the cloud service portal, which is a web-based service for analytics, metrics, and administration. So it all starts from Connect, which is our application for automated remote access and management. It makes it simple to connect to any individual client or manage a fleet of vessels from one interface. Like some of our competitive products, K4 provides powerful firewall controls, SD-WAN LAN configuration capabilities, content filtering and access through role definition with routing and QoS capabilities. And then even down to the packet level, we can inspect packets and can filter, route, and report usage on usual categories like domain, application, source, or individual IP address. Our solution, however, differs from the norm because we integrate wireless internet service and bandwidth orchestration, and that's at the core of the K4 Edge. It's structured to leverage existing setups and scale to multiple deployed systems, giving you greater visibility and control while reducing your effort and overall diagnostic time. We use consolidated machine learning from each Edge OS node to inform algorithms that can dynamically choose the best network. It does the hard work of network characterization and selection for you. So paired all together, these distinctions make managing a single vessel or fleet simple and proactive, resulting in lower operational costs, improved reliability, and better performance. So now I'll introduce you to one of our Edge OS nodes, the EdgeServer2. So when you purchase an EdgeServer2, here's what you can expect to find in the box. So going counterclockwise here, we have at the top the EdgeServer2. This is our hardened industrial platform. To the left here, we have a 12-volt DC power supply with an AC cable. There's a quick start guide, which explains how to get started, and a test report as it goes out of the factory to show that it passes all the operational functional tests. We also include a 1 gig Ethernet to USB converter, so you can plug in additional external devices, and then there's a VESA mount kit, so you can mount this server pretty much anywhere. And to guide you through the setup and configuration of one of our Edge platforms, here's our Director of Solutions Engineering, Justin Smith.
Thanks, Jarrett. So today we'll be covering a fictitious vessel called the My Hercules. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through an overview of that environment. You know, what access networks exist, the WAN topology, things like that. So let's get right into it. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Just know you guys can see it here. All right, so you guys should be able to see my screen now. So if we're looking at this environment, we have two WAN connections, the 100 meg Ethernet connection, and we have an emulated VSAT connection, that's 10 meg. And that's all plugged into our EdgeServer platform. Okay. And then we have several access networks. Our default network, AV, have a USG WAN network here in between the EdgeServer and our USG router. We have the owner network, and then we also have our guest Wi-Fi network as well. We also have out to the left here is our Connect app, which you can use to connect into the environment and access these devices remotely. So it's a tunneling protocol basically, and you're able to do some port forwarding, and you're able to reach these devices. So let's say if you have it on port 443 or something, you can access this router or laptop or tablet, whatever you have in the environment. As long as it has an IP address and a port, you can access it fairly easily. So let's go ahead and go through the setup now. So we'll get to the web interface of the EdgeServer. So if you are plugging in the box for the first time, you'll need to access the EdgeServer using the IP address of 192.168.231.1. And so you can just plug into the LAN port of that device and then type in that IP address. You can use the default credentials of Edge as the username and Edge as the password and click login. And when you first log in, you should be dropped right into our configuration wizard. Since I have a little bit of configuration on here, I was dropped into the internet status page. So we'll just head over to the configuration wizard. So if you haven't seen the configuration wizard before, It's really going through the setup process here. Simple steps, right? Just 7 steps to go through. And basically, the goal here is to take you through everything you really need to get the box up and running quickly. So we'll start by jumping right into the WAN links tab here. In this tab, as you probably guess, you have to configure your WAN links. So we have 2 configured so far, and by default, each WAN link uses DHCP. And so if you plug any links into it and DHCP is enabled on that link, the EdgeServer will obtain an IP address. So our first link here is our Ethernet link. This could be like the shore Ethernet if you're on a vessel, or you may have, a fiber link or some other type of link that you need to connect to. So we've just given it a name here of KaaS, as that's the service provider that I'm using here. And you can do that by clicking the little pencil icon here and clicking Save. If you click the Ethernet link itself, you'll be able to configure a static IP address if you need to. But we're going to leave this one as DHCP for now. It should obtain an IP address automatically and then a gateway address. That should all be filled in automatically. You can also configure the probes. And so what probes are, they determine the health of the link and they control if we're able to route traffic over that link. So we have a few options for the probe settings. By default, it'll use the HTTP settings, and we have a probe frequency of 5 here and a link up of 4. So what that means is we'll try to probe every 5 seconds or so, and as long as we get 4 successful, then we will count that link as up. If we miss 2 probes, then that link will be considered as down. Now, if this doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you need to change it, you want it a little bit faster, maybe a little slower, we have a couple of presets here that you can use. Or if those don't work for you, you want something completely custom, you can do the custom probing here and set the values to whatever you want. And you have ICMP or ACTP to choose from for the probe methods. The always up probe profile here, this is typically used for high cost links that will always be considered up. And this will, when this is enabled, we will not route any of our system traffic over this link to help curb cost of that link. So we're going to leave it on the default setting, and that's the recommended setting for most links here, and click on Save. So that's in place now. The other thing that you can do with our platform is set the speed tests. So right now we've enabled speed tests for periodic tests that will run every hour. And this data is graphed in our backend system that you can pull up on a graph later in the monitoring section of the software. So you can use this to confirm the speed that you're getting from the service provider and determine whether or not they are meeting their SLA or not. If you need to run a speed test from the software, you can just click the speed test button and that will run the speed test immediately and let you know exactly what speed you're getting. So we also have VSAT connected to this EdgeServer as well. So what we want to do here is configure a static IP. So we're going to just click on VSAT1 here, and then we'll give it a static IP of 192.168.2.20. And we'll click Save. And now that is saved. So let's just confirm that's working by running a speed test. So this uses our a speed test API in the background and just contacts the speedtest.net website. And then it pulls that data in and displays that data to you as the end user right here in our UI. So it could take a minute or two to complete. So right now, we're getting about 40 megs up and about 93 megs down, which is about what I'm getting from the service provider. So that's good. So that is pretty much everything that we need to configure initially on our WAN links page. The next thing we want to do is configure our access networks. So by default, we have one access network configured, and that's going to be on the 192.168.231.0/24 network. And we're actually pretty good with the default settings here. So we'll spend most of our time now configuring the additional networks. So let's jump back over to the diagram really quickly, just to remind ourselves of the access networks. So we should have a couple of different networks here. We have our AV network, our USG WAN, owner, and guest. So we'll get these first three configured here, and then we'll come back to our guest network. So let's jump back over. So first thing we need to do when configuring an access network that's on the EdgeServer, or that will be managed by the EdgeServer, is add a connected network. Next, we need to just define the VLAN ID or network ID. So for our environment, this is going to be VLAN 10. We'll give it an alias of AV. And by default, it's going to put in the 192.168.10.1/24 as the interface IP. So try to match the VLAN ID that you set here within the 192.168 address space. So we want to set the Manage Connected Network option to yes. This will allow us to configure WAN profiles and other settings that you'll need. And we'll go into when you want to use the no option in just a minute here. So for the WAN profile, we want to set it to default here. That's the only thing that's available. And then we want to set the aggregate traffic policy to default network as well. So the WAN profile, just really quickly, that allows you to determine or choose which WAN source will be used first and which ones will be used second, so you can set the priority of the different WAN sources that you may have. The aggregate traffic policy, that determines how much bandwidth can be consumed by any particular access network or device if you set a device traffic policy. So I think for the other settings that we have here, these are all okay. So we want to leave those. The next thing we want to do, I always like to give myself a little bit of room in the IP pool in the DHCP profile. So we'll set that to 51. That'll give us 50 addresses to work with. So now we just want to save this here. And our first access network is now configured, or second access network. Next thing we want to do is configure our USG WAN network. And so this will be a little bit different than the AV network. So just really quickly, the USG WAN network, it exists in between the EdgeServer and this layer 3 device. So we're going to route traffic over it to reach this guest network down here, which lives on this USG gateway. So it's going to be a little bit different. So what we need to do is add a connected network, and it's going to live on VLAN 20 here. And we'll call it USG WAN _WAN. And we'll leave the interface IP of 20.1. Now here we want to leave the Manage Connected Network option to no, and that will allow us to properly route traffic over this link. So we want to hit save. Okay. And now that's configured. So the next thing we want to do is configure our owner network. So this is going to live on VLAN 40. We'll call it owner. And automatically it'll get the correct interface IP of .1. You can change this if you want to. And now we want to leave the manage connected network option. We want to change that to yes. Our WAN profile, we want to set it to default. And then our aggregate traffic policy, we want to leave that at default as well. And then for our DHCP pool, we'll leave it on 51, just like we set for the other network. And now we can hit save. So now the owner network is configured. And then for our final access network here, which is going to be our guest network, this is going to be a little bit different because it lives behind the USG router here. So what we want to do is configure a managed routed network. So we're going to click that option here. And so as you can see, we can't configure a VLAN here because this is a network which we have to route to it. So we want to give it a name of guest, define the subnet as 192.168.30.0/24. And we want to set the gateway to 192.168.20.10 here. And then we want to set the WAN profile to default and aggregate traffic policy to default as well. These other options are good to go. And then we'll set up DHCP for this network as well, giving us a little bit of space to work with for static addresses if we need them. Let's go ahead and save that. And now we can see we have 3 access networks that are configured. 1 managed connected network, and then the managed routed network as well. So you can see the icons are a little bit different to indicate that these are different types of networks as well. So now that we have the access networks configured, what we want to do is configure our WAN profiles and our traffic policies, and then we'll come back and update our access networks so we can see how to apply those WAN profiles and traffic policies. So if we click the WAN profiles page here, we'll configure our default WAN profile here. Well, let's modify that. So by default, we have the Ethernet or Comcast link is going to be in our highest priority position, and then we have Wi-Fi, and then we have LTE and VSAT that's bonded together. So in this lab environment, we only have Comcast and VSAT1. So we can take these unused links out of our WAN profile and disable them. Okay. And then we can move our VSAT1 to the priority 2 position. And so pretty straightforward here. So any traffic or any access network that uses this WAN profile, first it will use the Comcast link, and then it will fail over to the VSAT1 link if the Comcast link fails. So we want to click save there, and then we want to configure a new profile for the owner. So we'll configure owner here. And this will be similar. So we'll configure the Comcast link as our highest priority. And let's say if we had LTE on the connected as well, we could use 2 LTE links together and then our VSAT link as a third option. So when you have two links together, those will automatically be bonded when they're set to the same priority. And by default, it will set to bond dynamically. And our algorithms will determine how much traffic is placed on each one of the links. If for whatever reason you want to change from this, you can click the little pencil icon here and click static. And you can set it to, let's say, 75% traffic on LTE1 and 25% on LTE2. But our algorithms are pretty smart, so I'd recommend leaving it on dynamic. So we'll leave it on that option for now. Click save. And click save again, and that will set up our two WAN profiles here. The next thing we want to do is set up some traffic policies. Okay. So in the traffic policy section, we get a couple of options here. So first thing we're going to do, let's just modify the default. Okay. So on the default network, what we want to do is we want to set it to, so for the bandwidth on default, we're going to do, let's do 5 for the Ethernet, and then we'll do 1 for the VSAT. So, and that's going to be on upload and download. So we'll set it to 1000 kilobits per second for upload on VSAT. And then the download we'll set to 1 meg as well. Okay, so that's set for the VSAT. We also want to set up a couple of application rules here. And by default, we're going to actually do application, and we'll find our OS updates, and we'll also do streaming media, all streaming media. Let's see. All right, so all that's there, and we're going to deny that. We don't want any updates, software updates going over the VSAT, and we don't want any streaming media going over the VSAT. So let's save that. So now that's an application policy profile, and we'll save again here. And then for the Comcast link, we're going to set this bandwidth to, let's see, we'll set that to 5 meg as well on the Comcast link. We'll set that to 5. Same thing for the download. Okay. And over the Ethernet or Comcast link, we don't necessarily need to block software updates or streaming media, but we could if we wanted to. But I think we just want to do that for the VSAT. So that's the default. So now we're going to create a new policy for the owner. Okay. And here we want to set this to 4 meg for VSAT, giving the owner more bandwidth, both for upload and download. We'll save that. And then for Comcast link, we'll do 40 by 40. So 40 meg for upload and 40 meg for download. So now that we have the default network traffic policy configured and the owner traffic policy configured, what we want to do now is apply it. So we have to go back to our access network. And the default network is good to go, or most other networks are good to go. So we just need to change the owner network here. So we can click on the edit network here. And under the WAN profile section, we'll just change it to owner for the WAN profile. And then for the aggregate traffic policy, we'll switch it to owner as well. And so now any devices that live on the owner network, they will be able to use the bandwidth limits that we set. And then all other networks, they're associated with the default. So when traffic is going over the VSAT network, they won't be able to stream, or any updates from iCloud or anything else like that won't work as well. So that's mostly everything that we need to configure for a new deployment. There's a couple other sections. Actually, we forgot to do the guest network. So no, it's here, but we need to do one more setting for the guest network. And we actually have to configure a static route. So let's do that. So we can click other settings, static route. Just configure the destination network as 192.168.30.0/24. And then we also need to configure the next hop IP 192.168.20.10. Now we can click save. So while we're over in this section, there's a few other things that you might want to configure when you're doing your first deployment. So if you need firewall rules, here we have our firewall settings section. You can create however many rules you want. You can set the different source and destination interfaces, IP addresses, any port numbers you may need. All of that can be configured right here. So if you want to do block traffic from the default network to the owner network, or vice versa, any other sort of rules that you need, they can all be configured right here in the firewall rules setting section. If you need to do change some multicast settings, that's right here as well. So by default, we will replicate all multicast traffic that we receive onto all of the networks that are listed or configured on our platform. But if you need to, let's say you don't want you don't want multicast traffic going to the default network because maybe it's used as management, you can just uncheck that. And now multicast traffic will only be replicated to the AV network, the USB WAN, and owner. Okay. And that is pretty much it. That's with all of these settings, you can you'll be able to access the internet and from the LAN side of the EdgeServer. You have policies in place, and now you're pretty much good to go. So I'll hand it back to Jared here to close us out.
Thanks, Justin. Just share my screen here. All right. I think we can have some Q&A now. Robert, would you like to start off with some Q&A, or Mark perhaps?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Robert Blackman here, Technical Director of K4 Mobility. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in. So perhaps you can go back to the screen share here, Justin. We have a question that come up. Is what's the US internet switch for on the interface list?
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and pull that up. So US Internet, what this allows you to do is if you need to access resources that are hosted in the US and you are away from the US failing, you can enable this option and you will be dropped into our VPN that's hosted in our data center, and your traffic will be netted to a US-based IP address. So if you need to access different US resources, news sites, anything like that, you'll be able to do that with this option enabled.
Excellent, thank you. And I guess sort of somewhat related to that, there was another question here about on the WAN profiles, what the advanced bonding is versus the bonding that you explained.
Exactly. All right, good question. So the advanced bonding, what this does, when it's enabled, this allows our software to seamlessly move live sessions from an active link that may be experiencing some sort of degradation over to a secondary link. Without it enabled, the connection will drop and get reestablished over the secondary link.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Another question here, but this is pertaining to access networks or the LAN networks on the vessel. It says, hi, can we import via CSV or something like this on the access network so we don't have to type in all the information manually?
CSV upload of access networks, I don't believe that's supported today, but that's something that we can certainly look at. There are sections within the UI where you can upload some information. So for example, where you can do a bulk upload of IP reservations, but CSV upload of access networks not quite supported today.
Excellent, thank you, Justin. I have another question here, which I think is more pertaining to your setup, is what is the USG? So this is I think the unified gateway.
Yeah, the USG, it's just a router from Ubiquiti. It's been out for a few years now. Supports about 300 meg throughput, just a basic router. Nothing real fancy about it. Just something I had lying around in some of my old hardware. So I decided to use it for this lab environment.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's just something that is on the LAN. So it could be a existing router on a vessel or the equivalent. It's just for the mock-up purposes of this demonstration.
Yeah, it could be anything, right? You could have an old Cisco router or, a Juniper router, some other routing device could easily take place of the USG router.
Excellent. Okay, a few more questions coming in here. So we have another question related to sort of bulk uploads. So it says here, when replacing an existing router with the EdgeServer, can you import a CSV of all the existing DHCP reservations?
Yeah, so if you have static reservations, we do support those here.
Yeah, so just to expand on that a little bit, so each VLAN or each access network, you can come to the details page here as Justin is displaying on his screen. At the bottom, we have the IP reservations. You can add those manually, or we can use the bulk upload option, which will allow you to upload a CSV of existing reservations. Okay, we have another question here come in. Can you back up and restore EdgeServer configurations?
Yeah, we do support backup and restore, but that's all supported from the back end. So you can reach out to K4 support and we can help you with that if you need.
Yeah, and it might be worth just noting here, if you can see at the bottom right of Justin's screen, we have a little chat function here, which will enable you to communicate with our support team. So if you were having any issues at all with the EdgeServer or any of our KaaS products for that matter, you have the chat option here to go directly through to our support, and we can either help you remotely or give you some assistance via the chat function. Okay, Brian, our CTO, who's on here, he just actually mentioned that the backup restore functionality is coming in a release in Q3 of this year. So this will be the GUI enabled backup and restore. So at the moment, as Justin mentioned, backup and restore sort of has to be done on the back end at the moment, but there'll be a customer configurable option to do the backup and restore via the GUI that you see in front of you now. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, are there any more questions?
No, I think that's it for now. I don't see any more coming in pertaining to the demo at the moment.
Okay, great. Just back up here. Okay, well, thanks everyone for your participation and discussion. To summarize, we talked through K4's powerful edge platform, KaaS, and introduced our fully integrated and scalable solution to manage network connectivity. We showed you what's in the box when you purchase an EdgeServer2. And then Justin showed us how our integrated solution lets you configure networks, set up firewall rules, and route traffic. And he also took a look at some of the tools we have to optimize your bandwidth usage and connectivity through WAN profiles, prioritization, link bonding, and traffic policies. So I'd like to thank you for tuning into K4's May 2022 webinar. This concludes today's presentation and demo. If you have any questions at all, or you're looking for more details on our software, airtime offerings, or other hardware products, please head over to our website at k4mobility.com, where you can also request a custom quote for your specific configuration. And as always, feel free to contact us with any technical questions through our 24/7 customer support. Thanks, goodbye.